Hey, it's another groovy day, and Jackie and I are back in the groove for sure. We've been off for the last 2 weeks. Jackie was a busy little bee. Some of you might have noticed what she was up to, but she had 50 presenters, one right after another. Boom, 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 for 10 days, 10 working days. It was crazy. But she pulled it off, and she had fun, and she had some pretty cool people, and some of those people you're going to see right here on Life Mastery Radio. Before we get started, let's just take a minute and get ourselves centered and situated and relaxed and in the groove for a really cool show today. And we can start off by just taking in a deep breath all the way down there to the bottom, and let that breath out with this big ah, and allow yourself to connect to the universe or spirit, God, Allah, the dude, whatever it is that you believe in. Connect to it. It could be the tree outside your window, and just calm yourself. Let's do that one more time, and this time think about those dreams, visions, and goals that we're halfway through the year. We're more than halfway through the year. Think about those dreams, visions, and goals you set off with. And now as you let out a big ah, let those dreams, visions, and goals just flow right up through you and out of your speaker box, out into the universe. And for sure, allow the universe the opportunity to make those come true for you. Put them in the front of your conscience. There we go. Hi, Jackie. I plugged you in the beginning.
Yes,
you survived. You survived.
I lived to tell about it.
Wasn't that cool? That was pretty cool. I was like blown away. I had no idea when you started off how intense that was going to be, but you, for 8 hours a day, for 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, you had a presenter, or this was a huge summit, and you had people talking about things they're passionate about.
Yeah, well, you know what? COVID has kept us from being able to have day camps with the children, the youth that we teach public speaking classes to. And I also know that they're having some real challenges right now. And suicide rates are increasing for young people. This to some of them is the end of the world, and they can't see a future. And so I wanted to bring some inspiring and motivating speakers together for these kids to hear, and not necessarily focus on public speaking skills, which they got some of that, but mostly it was, hey, I've been through similar struggles and challenges, and it always ends. You know, there's always something better on the other side. So it was really good for the kids to hear stories like that from so many people. We had Essie Bagiri, who was taken as a child and drafted into the Revolutionary Guard, the Iraqi army, as a young boy, age 9 or 10, I think. And so we had to learn how to fight in combat from a very young age. Never saw his family again. And so his story was quite interesting.
I'll bet.
What he's been able to learn coming out of that. And so the kids were just like glued to hear his story. So things like that were just very, very amazing. The kids really got a lot out of it. The last day they all said, I have more confidence now, and I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to say what I feel. And it was just, that was exactly what I wanted. So it turned out to be really cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. So any lessons learned? I'm sure you learned a lot.
I learned a lot. And the lesson is, I'm going to do this again. Right now, it was very timely and appropriate because of COVID. Whether or not we can pull off an entire 2 weeks like that again, I don't know if we'll have another opportunity for that. But we're going to, we've seen some synergy now between some of the speakers who spoke on topics that are well related to each other. So I can see having some smaller summits with some very particular teachers or speakers to talk about particular subjects. Yeah. So I can see that happening for sure. And as you said, some of these presenters that I found are going to be great guests for the show.
My hat's off to you, lady. That was
Works.
amazing. 50 presenters in 2 weeks. That's just like unimaginable. I couldn't imagine pulling something like that off. So my hat's off to you. I
Yeah.
don't have a hat on, but my imaginary hat.
Thank you. It was tiring and exciting and igniting all at the same time.
Igniting. So you've got some classes coming up.
All classes are starting in September. We've hired 2 more teachers, so we've got lots of opportunity now for classes. It's not just me and my schedule. Now we're opened up for a lot more kids to reach out to, so that's exciting.
Yeah, you can find out more information at speakfeedlead.org or JackieBaileySpeaks.com, our Facebook page, her Facebook page. There are many outlets for you.
I'm everywhere.
We're everywhere. I want to remind the listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com, whichever one. And for today's show, we have a special link that was created by our returning guest. And that link is up there. You can go there. You can get some links to MyVitalC, which we're going to be talking about, and some a meditation, a little meditation from Chris's friend, Patrick, and another ebook. Well, I guess it's an audio book that's about an hour long, and it's his 7 emotions audiobook, which is really cool. I've listened to it a couple times, and every time I listen to it, I get more out of it. So that link is at www.lifemasteryradio.net. Follow that. And while you're there, check out our newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter every week about who's been on the show and who's coming on the show. So just sign up for that newsletter. That's all we use that email address for, and you can stay informed. My book is there. You can click on the link to my book. Da-da-da-da. You'll love my book. Once you love it, read it. It's real short. The 6 Keys to Life Mastery. Unlocking life skills for successful living. And you will love it. Leave some feedback on Amazon, and that's the name of the game. Okay.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say, love it, read it, marry it. That's where my mind went for a second.
Well, you will kind of, if you put some of the principles into action, you become married to the thoughts and ideas that changed my life. That's why I wrote that book.
Becomes a lifelong relationship, right?
And of course, my dear sweet girlfriend, Coach Debbie, helped me put all that together and get it out there in the world. So you can find her on CoachDebbie.com, or she does a live show too, Story You Talk Radio. So check her out. Check that out. Maybe we'll put some links up on the Facebook page. Okay, I think I'm done cleaning the house. Are you ready for the show? Our guest today is returning. Chris Burres is a research engineer and scientist whose primary mission is to help people live longer, healthier, pain-free lives. Chris has a diverse background in the field of inventions and manufacturing, and a tinkerer at heart, I'm sure. He has a BS in mechanical engineering from the University of Houston, and Chris is a co-inventor of patents related to the use of explosives. Kaboom. Wow. Maybe we'll have to talk about that boom in Beirut. Man, that was a big boom. But I don't know how life mastery oriented that is. But anyway, Chris, welcome to the show. How are you today, my friend?
I am so happy to be here, Todd. Thank you so much for having me back. I feel like I'm at home. I look behind you. We've got the geeky Star Wars. I see an oscilloscope. I've done projects that have worked with oscilloscopes. Jackie's talking about public speaking, which is something that I've been passionate about for a very long time. I actually, my pursuit of public speaking got me into doing comedy improv. So I was with a professional comedy improv troupe here in Houston for a while. So I feel like this is just home.
Nice.
We cover it all.
That's awesome.
We have the full gamut. We have Toy Story and Star Wars, and that radio up there, that radio is pretty cool. That radio right there, that is an actual old tube radio, and it was manufactured by the Seattle Radio Corporation. And then RCA slapped a patent infringement on them in the 30s and shut them down.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
That was the name of the game back then. You crushed the competition quickly, but it's just one of those stories. So Chris, explosives, what did you think of that big boomer in Beirut? Wasn't that just devastating?
So
I watched that and I thought, oh my gosh, somebody lit a bomb. I mean, but that's ammonium nitrate. This stuff is highly volatile.
yeah, no, I mean, it's absolutely massive. I was actually on holiday, so I didn't get kind of the first news, and actually I tend to try and stay away from negative news. So like if I see that post, I'm like, you know, let me try not to watch it. So I actually don't know that much about that particular explosion.
Just the footage though of the power of an explosion like that being set off. Yeah, I'm not into negative stuff either, but I am fascinated by what can be created and what things can happen. And I was just like, man.
Well, the footage of it was from someone that appeared to have a cell phone and they saw a fire, right? But it looked like they were 2 or 3 miles away from the building that was burning. But then when it exploded, you could see them being knocked down and fallen under a car or something. So that's what was so incredible is the blast came so fast from so far away, it seemed like.
The shockwave,
Yeah.
Crazy.
Tremendous.
Well, Chris, the last time we had you on, we talked a lot about, we had both you and Patrick on.
Yes.
And we talked about this fascinating molecule that's part of MyVitalC. A carbon.
Is that the actual molecule?
This is the actual. It's really hard to get these into this bottle.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. That's most of our scientific effort. And then to gnaw these down in the morning.
Right.
But after that show, you offered some free product.
Yes.
Well, some product to Jackie and I, and we were asked to try it for 30 days and then we'd have you back on. So here you are. I didn't get into the bottles because you sent me 2 bottles. One,
Yep. This bottle we sent, and then we sent you these.
And I got the other bottle too.
The immunity blend.
Oh, the immunity blend. Yeah.
So, but I went after the tubes. And I took a tube every day, and I can say, my joints feel a little better. I was really hoping, Chris, that it would help my eyes. My eyes have a hard time focusing up close.
Right.
That's what my doctor said. So, but I didn't see much change in that. As a matter of fact, now I'm going to have to start wearing a pair of readers, because that's the only thing that's going to cure that.
Yeah, mine are actually the transition lenses.
So are these.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Still up close, my eyes don't focus right. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've got to look like straight through here, and I have another pair of glasses that I use for being at a computer or reading.
But something else interesting is I started breaking out right under my eyes right here. And my girlfriend told me that's a sign that I'm detoxing. So maybe the VitalC was detoxing a little bit. So I gave some to my dogs. They're dry skin. You sent me some product for my dogs too. And it seemed like their dry skin was a lot better. Their coats certainly were shinier.
Yep.
So I'd say overall, I don't know if I'm going to live longer yet.
Yeah, we facetiously we've kind of said, obviously facetiously, is that guaranteed to double your life or your money back, non-transferable. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. One of our testimonials, I'm glad you've had good experiences on it. We do get a variety of kind of, we've had some people talk about some stomach issues, and that can just be related to the increase in oil that you're consuming, because it's, a lot of people aren't consuming a teaspoon of olive oil on a regular basis, and so that can be some adjusting. And then there is a lot of talk in the forums and everything that I keep up with about this detoxing. I'm a scientist. I'm not convinced either way. Like, I think detoxing can be a thing. I don't really know that it might manifest as, as acne. I'm not sure about that. So
I don't know that it's acne. It's like, it's just like discoloration of the skin.
Almost like more like a rash, more like a.
Yeah, but it doesn't itch. It's not like, anything like that. It's just, maybe it's just that I'm getting old, Chris, and they're age spots, beauty spots. That's what they are.
Don't, getting old. Please don't. No, you can't say that. I think, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if that goes away. And then one thing that you can do, you can actually apply it topically. And so we're working on some formulations where you could actually put it right there. It could exacerbate the issue, right? It could clear it up. I know that with my son, he had bumps on his arm, and they had this treatment that was going to take, like, I think they said years, that they just got to put this on a couple times a day. And we started putting some of our product, MyVitalC, on it, and it went away pretty quickly and hasn't actually come back. We're not, lathering him up like we used to. So it has some, unique properties. Like, the whole molecule is just a pretty amazing story, and we can get into that. One of the testimonials that I think that I share regularly, because it's like, it's really a kind of a complex testimonial. There was a guy, I was actually working here at the office on a Sunday about 2 years ago, and this guy came and knocked on the door. And we're like an office warehouse place. We're not a retail establishment. There's like, people can come here and do will call. During COVID, we bring it out to them. But it's not that many people who do that. And this is a Sunday. So he knocks on the door. I kind of opened the door, and it felt very clandestine. Or I was like, do you have any ESS60? Yes, I do have ESS60. Come in. And then he gave me a credit card. He was going to buy 2 bottles. He was actually on a first date, which is just interesting. And then I've got this credit card, so I got to figure out, we don't have
how to
cash
process
register, it. So I got to go to my computer and process it. And so I remember that event very specifically. And then a number of months later, I was walking by the lobby, and he was there, recognized him. And Cassandra up front shared with me that this was his 3rd purchase, right? So the first one with me, and then 2 other purchases. And at the time, we were running a special on 3 bottles, and he purchased 3 bottles. And I'm like, this guy is going to have a great testimonial, right? So I'm like, hey, what have you been experiencing? And he goes, nothing. And I'm like, okay, in my head. And then there was kind of silence. And in my head, I'm like, okay, well, the research is about extending the life of rats. Certainly, it wasn't documented that those rats lived like an unhealthy kind of life until the end of their lives. They were healthy rats until the end. Oops, I don't know. My phone is saying stuff. That is, go away. That was weird. I feel like somebody's listening and talking, as it turns out. And so I'm thinking, well, the study was a 90% extension of life. If it's the best research that's out there about extending your life. If you wanted to be committed, then yes, you could do that. But that silence ended with, hey, so does it help with, and I can't talk about diseases, but he moved his knuckles around.
Arthritis.
Maybe. And I was like, well, we've got a lot of, I said, literally, the FDA hasn't evaluated the product for that. And we have a lot of testimonials regarding that. And he goes, oh, well, then it's fixed that. And then he goes, I also had this click, click, click in my knee, and that's gone. And I was like, well, at that point, I'm like, well, okay, it's a shame nothing is happening. And then he said, and I'm also jogging. I didn't jog for 10 years. I'm about my 10th jog is tonight. I'm going to go jogging. I'm jogging again. I'm like, well, okay, that's great. That's something that is a little more subtle. We find people are motivated to do stuff. And I think that comes from just the increased energy.
Or the feeling that, because I noticed that maybe a little bit, I was more apt to do some kind of physical activity, because things get creaky and you felt like doing it, right? It wasn't that I didn't want to do it. It's just, hey, I can go do that.
Yeah.
Get on the roof or whatever. Yeah.
And that could be two things, right? So our most consistent testimonial is better sleep. And then if you're like, just feel better, if you have less aches and pains, then obviously you're going to be more prone, like we can push through it, or if we don't have it, it's easier to do. So, and then it was interesting, and this is maybe more related to kind of being motivated. He goes, and the last thing is, I feel less stress at work. Let me be clear. It's the same job, the same people, the same stress. I just feel less stress at work. And again, I think that could have to do with the sleep. So it's an interesting, right? It's an interesting testimonial and kind of supports like, hey, if you're getting minimal effects and you are interested in living longer and potentially healthier, again, those rats weren't documented to have little walkers and little oxygen tanks. A 90% extension of life. This is the only thing that's on the market with peer-reviewed published research that supports that. In fact, the next best way to live longer is what I call the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet, where if you reduce your baseline, so if you were at your ideal weight and you had a calorie count that you're supposed to be taking, if you reduce that by 1/3, the research is pretty clear that you can extend your life by 30%. I just don't know anybody, and maybe it's bad marketing, who's signing up for the starve yourself 1/3 to death.
Well, Jackie got some product too, so maybe let's hear from Jackie. I know her husband was really interested in it, and you gave it to your dogs too. So let's maybe check in with Jackie and see how she did. I haven't talked to her about it. I know we both received the product on the same day and we were excited to try it. So
right. Well, I am a rather complicated case because I have fibromyalgia, which I've had for almost 40 years, right? And I've been able to maintain it pretty well. I also have a broken ankle that will be surgically repaired for the second time in about a week. And so I'm living with a lot of pain right now, which has caused some inflammatory response to me. And so this has been going on now. My ankle's been broken for 1.5 years. Wow. Essentially. So I've been struggling with that for a while. So when I got this stuff, and I also have gut issues, which is probably related to perhaps the Epstein-Barr virus or something. I'm not sure. We're still trying to figure that out. So I started, when I got the samples, I immediately saw the immunity blend. And I thought, okay, immunity blend, that's for me. And it's got the MCT oil in it, right? And I'd never taken MCT before. I have a personal trainer who takes MCT, and he's like, yeah, you got to be really careful with it, because if you take too much, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in the bathroom.
Digestive issues.
Kind of thing. Right. So I thought, well, but this is for me. So I gave my husband the regular stuff, the standard, and I took the immunity blend. And I could tell right away that when I was working out, I haven't worked out now for 2 weeks because of the summit, but when I was going and lifting weights, I definitely had more strength. I definitely had more stamina, and I definitely had more energy. Well, so I finished that bottle in the standard time.
And then stole your husband's back?
Oh, I could have, but I started taking the packets.
The little vials, yeah.
The little vials, right. And I think, as this man said, in stressful situations, like having had this summit now for 2 weeks, and there were some major technical issues that happened in the summit.
Can you imagine, Chris, organizing 50 people into a speaking summit?
What I can't imagine is organizing 50 people and there being no stress.
Right. Well, I didn't say there wasn't any stress, but I'm saying that I handled the stress.
Yeah.
Really well. And there was some major technical issues during the summit where my sound went out, or where we totally got kicked off of the Zoom platform for a little while. And I didn't wig out like I might have done in a normal situation. So that was definitely something that I noticed. Now, I think I probably am sleeping better now after the summit, but during the summit, it was a little bit hard. I said, I can't really report on this because I wasn't getting much sleep during that period of time anyway. So generally speaking, for myself, I was looking forward to a little less inflammation. I don't know that I've experienced that, but I definitely, when I was on the immunity blend, I definitely felt stronger, more energetic, and I had more stamina. And so to take more of that, that's what I'm going to get back.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to keep taking, is the immunity blend, because I can see a huge difference with that. And when I went off of that, like I said, I could tell that it wasn't the same, even though I was still getting those stress benefits. It wasn't the energy level that I had before. Now with the dogs, I have 2 dogs, and they immediately stop scratching all the time.
Wow.
And their fur has been so soft and fluffy. And so that was definitely noticed. And even their breath, I think, is a little bit improved. It's not as stinky as dog breath might be. And they're older dogs, so that tends to get that way. So the dogs, I can see a huge benefit with them. In fact, we reordered the dog blend, and I've got a monthly subscription for that now. But I think I'm going to need to have it more often than that, because the bottle runs out pretty quick with the 2 of them. So I'm definitely going to keep taking it or having my dogs take it. And I'm going to keep on the immunity blend, because I really liked that. And I miss that. So my overall experience has been really good.
Well, and like when it comes to like business and you like look at the numbers, all that matters is you reordered. Like that's, like at the end of the day, you could come and glow about it and have no intention to reorder it. That's not the real testimonial. The real testimonial is that you reordered it. Did your husband feel anything? Have you had any chance to kind of quiz him?
Yeah, I asked him, because I knew you were coming on the show, and he's out of town. So I thought I got to ask him before he leaves town. And he said, I didn't really notice much. But you know what? He says that about anything that he tries as far as supplemental.
Yeah.
He says, I don't know, maybe it's because I just don't have any health issues that I don't really notice. There's no dramatic changes or anything like that. So he said, I didn't really feel anything different, but he didn't also take it on a regular basis. There were several days when he would forget to use it. So it was not a real good control test, for sure.
Well, that could be too, Chris. So now I'm excited. Jackie sold me. I still have the bottle of the immunity blend.
So I'm going to get back on that.
Well,
here's a tip for you, Todd. Don't take it at night. Because when I first got the bottle, it was in the middle of the day, and I thought, I'm going to start taking this right away. So I took it. It was probably later in the afternoon. And because it boosted my energy, I did not sleep that first night. It was hard to get to sleep that first night. So I thought, well, I'm going to take it in the morning then, and take it in the morning was perfect. But do not take it at night.
Yeah. And the MCT oil can flush out your system. So it's certainly not a violent experience, but it's, just be aware of that. So
it was for a few days, and then my body sort of regulated to it, and it was fine. But yeah.
And those are the kind of the only negative things people ever really say are like that. They're related to oil, and some people don't like the taste. So how did you find the taste? Because we're thinking about coming out with gel caps.
I prefer the taste of the immunity blend over the regular.
The MCT adds like a little bit of butteriness to it, for sure.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a spicy. There was a little something spicy or something to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think these have a slightly milder oil in them. The little caps.
Tastes like olive oil. I didn't notice the difference. It just tasted like pure olive oil, and that's all that I've done is those capsules.
Oh, is the little ones?
Yeah.
Some people so I opened it and I spilled a little. So I can, you just take that little bit that you spilled onto your hands and just put it on your face. We've gotten good testimonials about that. And I haven't taken mine today, so I'm going to take this opportunity to take mine.
So is that pretty much your go-to? Is that little squirt tube?
So I do a couple of things. Normally, this was a weird morning, but normally I'll take our MCT product with some ghee. So really like a bulletproof. I don't know if you guys are familiar with bulletproof coffee. So So put a little bit of ghee in it, and in the bulletproof coffee recipe is MCT. So I'm doing MCT, except with this, some people have called miracle molecule. So I'll have that in my coffee, and then I'll actually take a teaspoon and a half of that. So because I've got big, I have big containers lying around, and so I just take a big teaspoon and a half. And then for lunch, I'll actually put the avocado version of our product on my salad. So I'm taking a lot more than a serving size that's recommended. Typical serving size is about a teaspoon or 5 mils, and each one of these is 1 teaspoon, exactly 5 mils.
Right. So there isn't. Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much take as much as you prefer. Then
the very first guy who ever sold into retail ESS60 and oil said the day before it, and he did it before us, but the day before he sold it, he downed 2 bottles of his product.
Oh my gosh.
Like, there was scant research. It was really cutting edge. And he's like, if I can't survive 2 bottles of this, then I'm not going to sell it. So I have a lot of respect for him in that regard, as crazy as it is. And so I'm aware of people saying that they're finishing a whole bottle. And I was on a Dr. Gundry podcast. He's a New York Times bestseller. He's written The Longevity Paradox, The Plant Paradox, really good stuff. And he says that the purpose of food is to get olive oil into your mouth. Like, that's how important olive oil is.
Really?
In his mind. And he was like a former president of one of the U.S. Heart Associations. So he actually stopped his heart surgery practice to focus on the diet and the impact that he can have on really millions of people by improving his diet. And we were working on a product together, and right before COVID, the next step was focus groups. And, COVID kind of put the stop on focus groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So does the immunity blend come in the little capsules?
No, not yet. It's just in the bottle.
Yeah. All right.
It's a pretty new one. We wanted to put something together that really kind of spoke to this kind of immunity enhancing time. And so that's what that's about.
Yeah. I really liked it. I don't like to waste things. So it was like, I had some in a little, it was like, licking it out.
Yep.
Trying to get every last drop. Because it was like, and I'm gluten-free, so I can't use bread. You'd mentioned bread.
Oh,
bread,
yeah.
I'm gluten-free, so I couldn't use that. So
Dr. Gundry gluten is a lectin, and Dr. Gundry's whole premise is getting lectins out of your diet. And lectins are the proteins that dissuade animals from eating them. So when we eat the lectins, like, we get the experience that the animals get, which cause them not to eat those things. And again, gluten is a lectin. He talks about sourdough bread because because of the way it's processed, all the lectins are broken down. I don't know where sourdough bread fits in a gluten-free diet, but you might want to try it, because that's the one thing, that's the one bread that is acceptable. Obviously, you don't gorge on bread and then, now I can eat all bread.
Right.
4 meals a day. But it might be something worth trying. I don't know if you've got kind of immediate feedback when you eat gluten and your body's like, stop, or if it's just kind of a longer term accumulation. But I highly recommend the book. Actually, on one of our family trips, we listened to the book, my whole family, on the way to Disney World, and then on the way back. So my kids could come on this podcast and talk to you about and they're 10. And they'd be like, "Oh, lectins, they're bad for you, and that's what insects and blah blah." Like, they're well.
So what's the name of the book?
The book is called, he's got 2. The Plant Paradox is the first one, and then the Longevity Paradox. And they're substantially similar. So you could just pick up the most recent one. And he's got case studies of just people switching over to his diet. Is what engaged me and had me reach out to him to get on his podcast. His testimonies match ours. Like, so as you're reading that book, everything that you read, in terms of the positive testimonials from people who have gotten on his diet, I've got the same testimonial related to our product. And so I actually asked him on the podcast, like, any idea, like, what is the parallel, what's going on? And he was like, I don't really know, right? Like, we're still working on what is the chemistry and biology behind the molecule.
But his diet doesn't include the molecule.
Correct. But he is taking my product. Right. And said so on the podcast. He was actually taking it from somebody else. And I explained to him in very specific details why he shouldn't do that, because Like we kind of started this industry. And so we kind of know everything that's going on in the industry. And he was actually buying it from kind of a harmful supplier. And so we got him kind of straight on that. And but yeah, that was a great experience, and I highly recommend that book. The Longevity Paradox.
Okay.
And I love his phrase. He goes, "I want you to die young at a very old age." I'm like, well, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So, that's what I
Okay.
would like.
Awesome.
And interesting, right? So those rats in our study live 90% longer. If the average human lives 90% longer, the average human will live to 152.
Wow.
Right? So that's not even that's not the longest. That's like almost every
That's average. Yeah.
50% get the mean is 152. So it's a huge change. And what's interesting, from just to share with you guys from kind of a business perspective, the research we have is the research that we have on our product, the peer-reviewed published research, is actually about living longer. And you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't, at how many people I share the study with, and yeah, it's about living longer. And they're like, yeah, I don't really want to live longer, and which is different than me, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, how about if you had the same mental and physical capacity that you have today? Now, interestingly, that doesn't shift everyone. So maybe people need to make some life changes. But it does shift most people, because in our minds, like that joke about the rats having little walkers and oxygen tanks, everybody just says, you live longer, that's your path. And what if you live longer, that's not your path? Maybe there's another path. And that path is a healthy, die young at a very old age. That's I think what people are mostly interested in. And so it's a really, from a business perspective, to try and steward this product into the market. When you shared that your husband didn't really experience anything, I'm in a very unique position, because I know often people like you, and even the guy that I shared the testimonial with, he kind of felt bad that he said nothing. He hasn't noticed anything. But I didn't create this for that purpose. You can imagine if I created this product for that purpose and you told me it didn't work, I might be devastated. but I didn't, right? My journey is very different. I'm not supposed to be a supplement guy. I'm a carbon nanomaterial scientist. I like, oscilloscopes and mechanical engineering. And I think that most people become a supplement guy or gal one of two ways. One, they decide they want to be wealthy, so they start selling supplements. And I've got no problem with anybody being wealthy. Hopefully they do it, earnestly. But that's not how I ended up being a supplement guy. The other is somebody's got maybe some health challenges, and you go out and do research, and maybe a loved one has health challenges, and you figure out the right supplementation and maybe the right ice bath routine or whatever. And now you want to go save the world. Hopefully it doesn't surprise you. I have no problem with people saving the world. It's just not how I became a supplement guy. I've been manufacturing this since 1991. In 2012, they do this crazy toxicity study. It's not even supposed to be a longevity study. Instead of being toxic, the rats given MyVitalC formulation lived 90% longer and then died with no tumors. And so really, I even resisted that. That study came out in 2012, 2013. People, you can imagine, right? I'm a carbon nanomaterial scientist. I sell this really crazy looking buckyball to research institutions around the world, and they put it in cars, in tires, and inks, and batteries, and solar cells. And now I start getting phone calls, how much in a dose? And I'm like, no, no amount in a dose. This is for car tires and inks and batteries and photocells. You don't put it in the human body. So in the middle of 2013, we actually added not for human consumption to our labeling, right? To all of our labeling. And we carried that. Now, the data was pretty clear. The best way to break it down is C60 is for industrial applications. And when it's improperly processed, there's peer-reviewed published research that shows that it's actually harmful. And then ESS60 is C60 that's been processed for safer human consumption. The data, even back in 2012, really at the point of that study, they'd had rats inhale it. They've actually injected it subcutaneously with no ill effects. So it was clearly safe, but it's hard for a scientist to kind of shift gears. So in 2013, again, we added not for human consumption. Fast forward to 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following starts talking about all the benefits he's getting from taking it on a daily basis. And really the industry sells out, except for us, because we're the largest manufacturer and distributor of ESS60 on the planet. And coming into 2018, I'm like, what am I going to do with this? I'm an entrepreneur and a carbon nanomaterial scientist. I've got this entrepreneurial opportunity that's landed in my lap. And I really asked myself two questions. The first is a moral question, right? I take it, my wife takes it, everybody on my team takes it. I'm comfortable selling it. That's the most important thing. It's kind of like the guy who downed 2 bottles the day before he launched his product. Like, you've got to believe it's safe, I think, before you sell it. And one good indication is that you're taking it. And then the next is the legal side. So you've got the FDA and the FTC, and you've just got to follow their guidelines. And of course we do that. And so really in 2018 is when we kind of took not for human consumption off the labeling and kind of shifted our mindset. But that was that's a 5 years where we're like,
it takes a while,
slow down. We're like, we're not convinced you should be putting this in your body. Again, the data was clear, but slow down. And then really just because of all the testimonials that were coming in, really reviewing the landscape of the literature, it's clear that it's safe. And so that's when I started taking it and we really started selling it.
Yeah.
You know,
Do you
I'm curious,
think that
Chris,
all supplements are tested that way?
The flat abject answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. So something that might surprise you about the FDA, because it surprised me, as I'm like, okay, now I'm a supplement guy. Like, what do supplement guys do? They research, right? They try and figure out how to stay on the right side of the FDA and how to not push claims and all of this stuff, right? And by the way, when we launched in 2018, we never had any claims. Like, even, we were selling the oil with the ESS60 molecule from mid 2013 all the way until today, but it was for research purposes only. And you can imagine, it had no even indications. Like, you want to do the rat study, here you go. If that rat study happens to be on you, please don't tell me about it, because I don't want to know. Like, it says not for human consumption for a reason.
Right.
But they were coming back, right, without any of this pre-marketing. We talk about the wow, my brain has just shut down. You usually do peer review, but then we talk about the placebo effect, right? But the product was out on the market with no, this is going to save your life. This is going to do whatever. It just had a rat study, and people were coming back with amazing testimonials related to like knee pain and back pain and hair growth. And in some cases, eye improvements, and like just the craziest stuff. So there was no placebo happening really until, okay, now we're going to start marketing it. We need to kind of enhance the understanding of what people can benefit. Because I can share with you I love this testimonial. It's from one of our largest distributors here in Houston. Her name is Gwen, and she initially bought the product for her dog. And like, you guys noticed that the dog's coat improved, but also noticed a more youthful dog, right? So it's a more elderly dog, and it's running around more and doing all this stuff. And it was so noticeable that she decided to take the product for herself. And she'll tell you 3 months in, she would have told you she hadn't noticed anything because the results were so subtle. But she stopped one day and kind of took stock of things that have been happening. And she's like, well, I am working a little bit later each night, and I'm actually waking up earlier than I normally do. I'm not a extreme morning person, but I'm definitely waking up earlier. And I love, maybe the lamest testimonial ever. I cleaned my garage, right? Which is something that's been on her for a very long time. And Todd, you kind of alluded to this. Like, I work out. Like, what's the delta? It's not like you worked out and you were still sore. So like, you experienced the pain of working out, but there was something that motivated her to make that change. And so we've seen all of these testimonials, and then that's really like why we've added this, and why we're really, I'm just trying to get this into a lot of people's hands, because the testimonials are are sometimes, some of them are tear jerking, but they're just, it's impressive. And again, I didn't invent it for that purpose. So if you tell me it doesn't work for you, that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, Chris, what is the form of the ES660 before it's suspended in the oil?
So the process, I can, like, you'll geek out on this. So the process on manufacturing carbon fullerenes and really ultimately isolating C60 is you take 2 graphite rods. So you can imagine my fingers are graphite rods. You put them in a reactor. It's a reduced oxygen environment and a reduced atmosphere. And then you vaporize the graphite rods between each other, right? So by the way, graphite is one of the hardest materials on the planet to vaporize. So you actually have local temperatures of the sun. We have got a sight glass. If you don't use a welder's goggle, you'll actually get a sunburn. 1, you shouldn't look at it because you'll burn your eye. And 2, if the sun is just coming through that sight glass, you'll actually get a sunburn. And then that creates a soot. We actually call that fullerenic soot. And that soot has about 10, on a good run, has about 10% fullerenes and then 90% carbon crap. That's what we call it because we got to get it out of the way.
Oh, so you filter it.
Yeah. So the next step is just like if you had 10% sugar and 90% sand, you would dissolve it in water and then you would filter it. The sand would stay on top of the filter. The sugar would go through as sugar water. In our case, we use a solvent, a hydrocarbon solvent, and the fullerenes dissolve in the solvent and the carbon crap doesn't dissolve in the solvent. And then you filter it and you actually get a reddish liquid that comes through. Then you boil off that. Now that leaves you with a black powder. That black powder is about 80% C60 and then about 18% or so, and it varies on different runs, but C70, and then there's some higher fullerenes. So you can actually get much bigger fullerenes. C70 is more of like a rugby shape. So C60 is just this, perfect sphere. And then C70 is more like a little oblong. So now you got to, in order to get pure C60, you got to go through chromatography processes to separate out the C60. And now you've got pure C60 with solvents in it. You got to deal with the solvents. So that is something that's obviously very important. And we have debates. The internet is abound with like, oh, solvents this, solvents that. And kind of my ultimate test is we're using the same responses. We're using the same product that we sold to the University of Paris for the rat study, where those rats lived 90% longer. Any trace, and trace is the right word, we know that we're 10,000 times lower than the amount of solvents that the FDA says is okay in drinking water. So any trace solvents that you might want to complain about, the rats didn't complain about, right? They experienced double the life and no tumors. So that's that process. And that again ends up in a black powder. Now you take that black powder and you mix it in oil in an oxygen-free environment for 3 weeks. And we're actually doing HPLC testing on it regularly to understand the concentration. We did a survey of the industry. We took like 20 of the products that are out there, and they were all low, like almost none of it. Just like you might imagine, I've seen articles where 50% of supplements on the market don't have what they say they have. Right. Now, that can be egregious, meaning they say vitamin C and they have none, or they say they have a gram and they have 0.95 grams instead of 1, right? So I don't know how big was the batch when they mixed it. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Like I don't know how bad that means, but it's not good. And then we look at the survey, we look at the concentrations and kind of our industry, and they're just woefully low. And the reality is my company's pedigree is we've been selling carbon nanomaterials to research scientists around the world since 1991. When I sell them a powder or an oil or anything, the first thing they do is give it to a grad student who goes back in their analytics lab and knows how to use it and says, yes, what they sold us is what they told us they sold us. And anybody who's just in this game to make a quick buck, they don't have that pedigree. And so they're like, well, the protocol in the original study was mix it for 2 weeks. So that should be good enough. And it's not. And so having that analytics lab, which of course we have, really changes the game. And it's really kind of why we're talking about ESS60 is safer for human consumption. And if you're buying a product that has ESS60 in it, it's probably going to have the concentration that you think that they say it has.
Wow.
Fascinating. So where are you at in the process with the FDA? Obviously, they've approved it for you to distribute. Is there more that needs to be done?
Well, so the FDA can get into a couple of things. The first thing, and I never finished this story, the thing that would surprise you about the FDA, because it surprised me, is on their website, it says you do not have to prove that a supplement is safe before you sell it. Now, that's pretty scary, right? Makes you very nervous. And if you think about it, if Jackie comes out with a product that's 10% vitamin C and 90% vitamin D, and Todd, you come out with 50% vitamin C and 50% vitamin D, you actually have another supplement. So if you just think about the sheer volume of supplements that are out there on the market, there is no way for the FDA to pre-approve this. So it's as disappointing as it is, it just like it can't be done.
So as it evolves, then you have to get.
Well, the reality is what your obligation is. If there are any serious adverse side effects, you've got to report those, right? So in our case, we haven't had to report any, but if you've got a product out there and somebody has an allergic reaction to it and it's pretty severe, you've got to report that. Now, that doesn't mean the FDA is going to come and investigate you or whatever, because like one severe reaction doesn't mean that a product is dangerous, right? So it's really like, how do we manage the safety of the consumer with this, infinite number of supplements that are out on the market, and that's really the only way that they can do it. So we're just like I said, anytime if we were to have any serious adverse effects, we would have to report that to the FDA, and we haven't had to do that. And so that's kind of great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Chris, can you believe this hour has blown by?
I'm seeing the 3-minute timer.
What did you say? Wait a second. What did you say? No, I'm just kidding. We have the recording.
Yes. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Chris, for what you're doing, because that's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you guys for taking the time and having me back on and being honest with your husband. Okay, no experience there. And I'm excited for Todd to try the immunity blend.
Here we go. So we're going to do this, and we're going to sometime in the future, we're going to bring you back on, because there's some interesting things, more things that we could probably talk about and kick around. And in the interim of that, we're going to have your friend Patrick back on.
Yeah.
I think both of you guys separately is a lot more fun than trying to get
to cram all that into one.
That's what Jackie and I said after the show. It's like, wow, we had so much going on there. We need to get these guys separated. So not that we want to separate you.
Thank you guys so much for having me back on. And if you, I can give away the link and then kind of get some, like, if anybody's interested in trying the product, I can follow up with that. Is that so?
We have the link. It's on lifemasteryradio.net. Follow that link. You can see Patrick, and you can follow the link to Chris's MyVitalC website. And what else did you have on that link?
Well, you may have a Life Mastery coupon.
I do. I have the Life Mastery, MyVitalC /Life Mastery.
And I can give a little advice. If you go to that link and click to the homepage of MyVitalC, you can get like 1 bottle of our product, or you can get on subscription, and that comes with a 25% discount. You can cancel that at any time. So I just encourage people to take advantage of that discount. I'd love to hear feedback from your audience about what their experience has been.
Go check it out. Cool. We're going to have Chris back on. We are out of time. Lastly, I would just like for you to make it a great day and choose to get Chris's product and try it, because it is all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.